All right, gearheads, we are very excited to have our guest on the show today because it's been on our mind, everybody who wants to attend the Formula One race here in Austin, about what's going on with COVID. And we are excited to welcome the Mayor of Austin, Steve Adler. Mayor Adler, welcome to Speed City.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be with you guys.
Well, thank you so much. And I think I just want to jump right in and start talking about the COVID situation, because as we know, we didn't get the race last year. And I want to ask you, what do you think the chances are of it happening? Let's start with that this year.
Well, I think right now that we're set to go, and I'm excited for that. The Austin Public Health Authority is working with the modelers at the University of Texas, and if that changes, we'll certainly know. But I know that the priority is to figure out how it is we run big events like this in a way that is safe. I think the Delta virus is going to be with us for a while. It's not an option to close back up cities the way that they had closed in the past. A community is going to have to learn how to do this kind of virus and do it in a safe way, because it's something I think we're going to have to sustain. There was just an event concert out at COTA here recently, and some of these precautions mitigation efforts were taken at the request of, I guess, the artist out there, and we were real appreciative of that. And I think that's the kind of thing that we're going to see more and more of.
Well, great. Well, go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Well, so ACL just announced that they are going to move forward with their ACL Fest, but they're going to require either a proof of vaccination or a proof of a negative test. Is that the kind of thing that we're thinking for Formula One?
You know, I think that's exactly how the health authority is thinking. So what you're looking at is, and the risks associated with big events are the number of infections that could be passed in a group that is that large. And the way that translates when you have an event like that in the community is it eventually turns into, statistically, a certain number of people that end up in your hospitals and in your intensive care units. And that's where we're stressed. So what you want to do is you want to minimize the possibility for infections and in big settings. And the modelers can actually tell you, if you have an event, you know, how many hospitalizations you're likely to get for every 10,000 people that are in a crowd. Well, if you have a crowd that's made of people that have either been vaccinated and show proof of that, and it's a crowd that if they're not vaccinated can show that they have a test within the last 48 hours or whatever showing a negative result, you can also calculate what the risk is and how many people are going to show up at the ICUs. And what the modelers are telling us from the University of Texas is that if you do that mitigation effort, you can cut the number of potential infections, you know, by 90%. And I think it's that kind of thing that communities are going to start looking at more and more all around the world with respect to holding these large events.
Mayor, you've got kind of a bit of an insurance policy in the Formula One and MotoGP, which is also at the same weekend as ACL, but both are international motor racing sports that have their own bubbles and have been traveling around the world for 2 years now under COVID. So they've got their own kind of protocol, but I suppose it's the fans, and those fans could be coming from all over the States and also internationally. And I guess they will have to follow whatever protocols the airlines have. So there is a little bit of buffer, if you will, about people who may be coming to Austin that haven't been to Austin for a while.
You know, and that's true, and you're right. It's the fans and the visitors more than it is the competitors and the teams, because again, it's a question of numbers. It's the number of possible transmissions in a group and what that could have, you know, community-wide. But it is great modeling to see events like this that model that it's right to take a vaccine. It's great to have celebrities and people that fans look up to saying, hey, this is what we're doing to keep our sport going and our events events safe. Because we need people to hear that. I mean, the biggest problem we have right now in our country is fear of taking these kind of mitigation efforts, and we have to break that if we're going to do the things that are necessary to keep the community safe. So that kind of modeling, I think, is real important. ACL is working with our health authority. As they get closer to the event, they're going to be taking a look at masking and how that should play a part in the events. But right now, it appears as if, as we talked about, the modeling that we have, we're hoping to be able to demonstrate and prove out. Lollapalooza event took place up in Chicago, following these kinds of protocols. It resulted in a large number of people getting vaccinated that might not have gotten vaccinated otherwise because they wanted to be able to go to the event. So the attendance of the event becomes its own incentive. But also when they look at the epidemiologists afterwards, it just did not give rise to a large number of cases. Because I believe of the mitigation effort. So it's a question of discipline. It's a question of a crowd that's willing to recognize that if we're going to be able to keep the economy open and do events, it's like incumbent on all of us to do our part. We're all fighting to keep the economies open and to do things. And it's going to be, you can't enforce your way to compliance. There are not enough code agents or police officers or whatever. This has got to be something that a community wants to do in order to be able to preserve this kind of activity in their communities. And we're sure hoping that all the visitors or participants that come in participate in that.
Well, Mayor, you mentioned it, the economies, COTA and specifically the Formula One race is such a massive economic engine for the Austin metropolitan area. The studies that they've done show over $500 million in the economic impact. And, I know in your chair, you've got to be sitting here looking at the benefits versus the dangers. I mean, do you look at that? I mean, how do you look at that economic side of it?
Well, I mean, in all frankness, I look at that secondarily. The priority for the community has to be public health and public safety. And we have tried since the beginning of this pandemic to follow the doctors and the data. And what we're finding is that holds us in good stead. I think the mortality rate in Austin is half of what it is in the state of Texas, less than half of what it is nationally in the country because we're doing that. And ultimately, we're going to be guided by the things we need to do to keep our community the most safe. And right now, what will drive that will be the greatest number of people that are getting vaccinated, and the people, if not vaccinated, that are taking tests before they're around other people. And that becomes then the behavior you're trying to encourage. And that's what we're trying to do. We constantly have our health authority that's taking a look at these kinds of big events. I know she's looking at that now. I anticipate that she's going to give us kind of her final recommendations on how we do these large events. Could be as early as this week. And I know that she's involving the modelers at the University of Texas and looking at the other experiences like the one in Chicago, because public health comes first. We were, one of the first cities to actually close down a big event that had the largest economic impact of any event we had. When we canceled, working with the organizers, South by Southwest, a little over a year ago. Incredibly difficult decision to make because of the economic impact. We would make the same decision again if that was the choice. But thus far, that has not been the choice, because what we're trying to do is to really find the model that will keep a community safe in a Delta COVID world. And that's what we're trying to find.
In that respect, then, Mayor, where does the buck stop then? Is it the event, or is it the city of Austin that needs to make the final decision? Or do you leave it to, is it going to be a case by case? I heard you had something like 160 permits for events within the city. And of course, I don't know, does this come under that jurisdiction?
It certainly could. And part of the issue is who ultimately has the final say. Here, that's a debated issue right now with school districts that are in court with our governor. Local communities acting through their independent school boards have mandated masking or other mitigation efforts in order to keep children safe at the request of parents. Our governor at this point is saying that those school districts can't do that. I mean, ultimately, I think the courts are going to decide. It could be that those opinions teach us rules of law or find on rules of law that will have application for events like the F1 race. So some of this, as in many places, is kind of up in the air.
Well, Mayor Adler, we've got people all over the world wanting to know what you've said today, that it looks like we're going to move forward, because there's Formula One fans that travel from all over the world, as you know, to come to Austin. And so, like you said, it looks good so far, but when do you think we'll know definitively?
I think it could be as early as this week. I think it's probably likely that we will hear from the health authority this week. If not, certainly by next week. This is something that is being well thought out, as you might imagine. There will be a lot of people interested in this from lots of different kinds of perspectives. With the event coming up, we recognize the need to be definitive and act with speed. That said, I can tell you where we are right now and where the rules are right now, and and what we're trying to solve for. So let's wait. Hopefully, we'll hear official word this week.
Well, the last thing is, amongst our fans or Formula One fans, there's a lot of rumors because Japan just got cancelled and a few others internationally. So they were talking about potentially Austin having a second Formula One event, which would give us MotoGP and 2 Formula One events in October. Would you welcome that?
To me, I was one of the early season ticket holders here, so it's certainly something that as personal interest, it's a great thing for our city. So if the health authority comes back and says that this is consistent with what we're doing to keep our community safe, I think it'd be great to be able to see that. I saw what happened in Singapore and Australia, kind of book ending our event here, and I've heard that that's a possibility, and it would be an exciting prospect.
Well, Mayor Steve Adler, thank you very much for coming on Speed City to help clarify this. I'm glad to hear you're a fan. I'm glad you pay attention to what goes on out at COTA, and we'll be sitting on the edge of our seat waiting to hear the answers.
Absolutely. We know a lot of people are.
And Mayor Adler, thank you for keeping us safe. That's from me.
Jonathan, I appreciate that. John, take care.